Welcome back to the Woj Lowe trade deadline special. We actually had a trade, a 4-team, 12-player trade.
4-team, 12-player trade.
Whew, I'm tired already thinking about that. The centerpiece was the Rockets, I think, acquiring Robert Covington in exchange for Clint Capela, and a bunch of other things happened. It's a really interesting trade by the Rockets, trading their only playable center, the only one getting any rotation minutes lately. What does it tell us about what this team thinks of itself and where it's going now?
Well, in a lot of ways, listen, this could be the last stand of Coach Mike D'Antoni. He is in the last year of his contract. They broke off talks about an extension. And in a lot of ways, you just see Mike D'Antoni going all in on what he believes in, their system. And same with Daryl Morey, the GM. I mean, they have a lot of very similar thoughts about pushing the limits of this game. In a lot of ways, both of them have innovated of what the modern NBA looks like. And they're going to go small, and they value the idea of that 3-and-D player in Robert Covington, a wing, over a center in Clint Capela that more than one executive in the West said to me, thank God Clint Capela's out of the West.
Out of the West.
He's in the East. We're glad he wasn't traded somewhere else in our conference.
Well, I think it's interesting because swapping Chris Paul for Russell Westbrook it's changed everything about the fabric of this team. And they've just concluded, look, Russ is not a three-point shooter anymore. He's not a jump shooter. We can't have two guys who can't shoot on the floor. It just doesn't work. So we're going to just go all in on if we have to trade big for small, we'll do that. Now, they're 15th in defense as things stand now. That's not good enough. And I don't know how they're going to get good enough with this roster. They're counting on turnovers and pace. And if you try to offensive rebound against us and you don't get it, bam, we're running out with Russ. Okay, that's great. To win the NBA title, which is the goal here, you know that this ownership group is not going to be, satisfied with losing in the second round or something. You got to play defense, and that's where the rubber is going to meet the road for these guys. Yeah. A team that was supposed to be a historically great defense. The Philadelphia 76ers are 31-20. They're 6th in the East. I don't care how awkward the fit is, how much time it was going to take, how many injuries they've had, and they've had some. Josh Richardson is hurt now. That is a disappointment. Al Horford voiced some comments today that I think are being sensationalized a little bit about how we've got to call some people out in the locker room or some such thing. What's going to happen here? Can they do anything at the deadline, or is this a wait and see how they do in the playoffs kind of thing?
I mean, Zach, short of making a wholesale trade of one of their elite core max players, which there's been no suggestion they're ready to do that. Even Al Horford, who's still trying to figure out how to play with that group, what his role is, what they need from him. The feeling in Philly is we need Al Horford to beat the Bucks. We need his size. We need to be big against them. And so you look around the periphery on their roster, the Mike Scotts, the Zaire Smiths, a first-round pick. It's not going to bring back much. And we talk about it's a team that needs shooting. They really have missed J.J. Redick. They knew they wouldn't be able to afford to keep him. But everybody, we said it earlier, every contender would love to add shooting. They will be outbid pretty much by anybody out there in terms of a guy who can really help them. They're going to have their savior is going to have to be internally. And what worries you about that team, Zach, and Brett Brown uses this word a lot, the spirit of it. It's not just that they play poorly.
It's sagging right now.
They don't compete. They don't look like they enjoy playing with each other. There are a lot of reasons to be concerned about this. You can't
let Jimmy Butler, the guy you let go away, just whip you 3 times now this season. We've all heard almost no chance any of the starters or Matisse Thybulle are getting traded. So again, the solution is going to have to come within. And by the way, I do think they match up well with the Bucks as well as you can match up with the 43-7 team. It's the Raptors, the Pacers, the Celtics, all those teams that, you got to get by those teams too. And then they're going to have to play better. Let's get into some swing teams that can really dictate how this market unfolds. And I think the most obvious one is Oklahoma City, filled with veterans, Steven Adams, Danilo Gallinari, already mentioned Schroeder. Chris Paul, I think, is probably untradeable with that contract. Those guys are coveted. They're good players. What's the sense of Oklahoma City as we bear down on the deadline here?
Sam Presti is essentially telling people, come with your best offers. They have almost one of everything. You want a combo guard, you got Dennis Schroeder, you got a forward in Danilo Gallinari, you got a starting level center in Steven Adams, who's a winning player, there's teams with some needs in the middle. Atlanta, by trading for Capela, they're off the board for Adams. And essentially they're saying is we can go into the summer and keep these guys. We could do a sign and trade for Gallinari, or we could move him now if we get a deal we like. But this team is probably overachieved. Billy Donovan I think is a Coach of the Year candidate in the NBA. I think in that city, that community, they've really enjoyed this team. And Chris Paul is playing some of his best basketball in years. And so I think they're open for business. It's possible they do one deal. It's possible they do multiple deals or none, but they don't feel a pressure that they have to do anything.
I would love them to go the other way. Buy, get a quality wing in there, and that's a team that nobody wants to see in the playoffs.
And they've made those calls too.
Love it. That's what I want. Let's get to Miami, because Miami, I think, is better than they anticipated being. And when they see a window,
you called it on Miami. You called it on Miami.
I'm wrong about a lot of stuff. I was right on
that
them.
one.
And you know Pat Riley, when he sees a window, he is going to punch his fist through it as hard as he can to try and get in there. They have Justice Winslow, who's injured, and we don't really know when he's coming back. They have a couple of expirings. Trading a pick is difficult for them, but you know they're going to try and do something. Is there anything out there?
I think they are still very much a sleeper team for Andre Iguodala in Memphis.
Woo!
I mean, it fits them perfectly. He fits their DNA. I think that's a team to continue to watch between now and 3 o'clock on Thursday. Another thing to keep in mind with Miami is they make deals. They want to keep some cap flexibility, some space for 2021 when there's a certain potential free agent from Milwaukee named Giannis Antetokounmpo. Pat Riley will always be big game hunting. That's the biggest game on the horizon.
And I think they would have liked to have gotten in on Drew Holiday, but they're not. I would be very surprised if they traded Tyler Hero or any of young player of that level or better to get in that conversation.
And so far, New Orleans has signaled they are not interested in moving Drew Holiday before the trade deadline.
We'll talk about some other swing teams when we get back, including the teams that are still getting over Kawhi Leonard and one that just fired its president of basketball operations. Come back and hang with us.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.